Hi, I'm Anthony Flemmer. I'm the CEO of Defense Logic. We are a cybersecurity company that does penetration testing and managed cyber managed cyber environments for our clients. I know it's not a sales pitch, so I'll move on quite quickly before Jeff gives me a slap. So the next one. Yeah, I just wanted today I'm just going to be taking you through a number of stories of things that we've seen in our time in cyber, and some of them you guys would have seen as well. But yeah, it's always interesting how wrong things can go, and I just thought I'd share these things that we've seen. So this was an interesting story that happened a couple of years ago, and I've changed the names of people to protect them, so you won't find these engineers because they might not even be engineers, but they are from that kind of industry. So what happened was there were this engineering company uh, got suddenly cut off from the internet, and what had actually happened in the background was the NCSC had got hold of the local telco provider and instructed them to cut them off because they were actually spamming most of Europe and the UK with junk mail on a continuous basis. It must have been a seriously high volume for the NCSC to get involved. So then, what happens next? Well, then there's a lot of finger pointing about who should have been looking after our environment from the engineers who are not very IT sort of literate. And we were called in to come and remediate their environment so that they could actually be connected up to the internet. So we went along there. It's a pretty small company. And we asked them, so what is your setup? So they were one of these organizations that believed if you've got Apple devices, then you're as safe as houses and you don't really have to worry about anyone hacking you. But they took it to the next level, which was extraordinary in that they were so confident about Apple that they turned off the antivirus in their Apple Macs. So they were completely exposed on that level. And then they'd engaged a IT provider who must have probably been the laziest person in Jersey, because instead of just driving to these engineers' offices, which couldn't have been more than 14 kilometers, because that's the longest drive you can ever have in Jersey, they decided to install some RDP connections. And for some reason, they didn't just install one, they installed three, and none of them were password protected. So this is obviously how the guys, the spamming gang got in, and the spamming people came in, and they just basically set up shop on the engineers' infrastructure on their Macs and started spamming Europe, absolutely hundreds of thousands of emails on a continuous basis from these guys. So it really wasn't a complicated fix to sort out afterwards. We went in there and we upgraded their 12-year-old Dracon router so that it actually could be patched, and got rid of the RDP connections without passwords, and just told them to put their antiviruses on and upgrade their machines, and well, just make sure this machine's up to date. Wrote a report to the telco provider, and they were connected with that. But it was that, I guess, that sort of naivety of believing that you're so small that no one's going to be interested in you. You're going to get hit if you're that poor with your IT hygiene. Um, the next story was a friend of mine. She had an app that she sells on the internet, and I kept on saying to her, you really need to have a pen test done, and I'll almost do it for free, but I won't do it for free, obviously, because I'm not a charity. But you've got to get it done. And this dragged on for about 2 years, and then of course all of a sudden he said, "Ant, I need a pen test on the phone, but I'm not really worried because my I've got really great developers, and I'm sure they've got security covered." And I suppose everyone on this call's had heard that line before. And I think someone it's going to mute. Durgan. Yeah, thank you. Um, anyway, who's that making that funny noise? Can you just all put your things on mute, please? Thanks. Okay, so we went and we started testing. We got the Android app onto our rigs and started looking, and within about 4 hours, we were into we were into their database. We could take all their data. The security clearly was not very good at all, and then it was a case of, oh well, we now need to fix this problem, and this is where the business impact came in quite heavily, in that they had a big client that wanted to buy lots of these apps. It was a big financial services company, and they had asked for the pen test, and then the remediation of this particular issue, because they've got their access control completely wrong, took them about 6 months to fix. And there were various questions about how they could give the pen test report to the client without having the vulnerabilities disclosed. And I was like, it doesn't really work like that. The client wants to see the pen test from us, um, saying what's wrong with it. And the only way to do that is fix it. And then we can do another test and give you an attestation saying that your vulnerabilities are cleared. So that was the impact of just delaying the pen test, and the business impact to this company that was pretty cash flow strapped to start off with, and this did not help their situation at all. The next story is I've got a question for you guys, and if you can just put into the chat a thumbs up of who thinks that it's legal, or no, who thinks it's illegal to pay a ransom to a Russian gang, bearing in mind that we're currently sanctioning Russia, and also that the story takes place in the US of A. So I don't know if you can actually see how many people. Jeff, can you just see how many people have actually think? So you've got hands up going, yep, agreeing that it's illegal. Okay, great. All right. So this is quite an interesting story. We got and it's really about paying the ransom. We were brought into to this company that was a very large law type company in North America, and they had been hit by a Russian ransom gang, and we were really brought in to make sure that the rebuild that was taking place was going to be the rebuild was going to not have the ransomware baked back into it. So we were testing as they were building. They had Mandiant on site looking for ways of looking for how the ransomware gang had got in. So this client was spending money like water. It was unbelievable. And so we were involved in some of the discussions on the thing. And it started off with, okay, well, how are we going to, we need to pay this ransom, because this data, if it ever gets out, is going to be literally end of days for this company. And this was a very lucrative company. And I thought to myself, well, that's not something that can absolutely possibly happen. Anyway, it turns out that it can happen, because what you need to do is, and it's not an easy thing to do, is you get the Department of Justice on site, you get the FBI, they've all got to be involved in this process. And then you get a very clever lawyer, and lawyers are extremely clever because they can actually attribute a Russian gang's attacks, and they can attribute them to Russians that are non-sanctioned Russians, so-called, I'd say, good Russians. And anyway, so a letter gets written by the lawyer saying that this is the case. How they do it, I don't think it's possible, and I'm sure everyone on this call is shaking their head, saying, "Well, how can you attribute it like that?" But this is what happened. They attributed it. They got permission from the Department of Justice. They got permission from the FBI, and then it came to paying the ransom. And I was thinking, oh well, how much is this ransom? 100,000? No, the ransom was they wanted $10 million. Anyway, after some extreme haggling, we got them down to $9 million, and that's what was paid at the end of the day. And I don't think they were particularly interested in getting the encryption keys back. It was really just a case of hopefully that data never leaking out into the public. So they still live in that sort of position of that data. I suppose as the data gets older, this is quite a few years ago now, it becomes less valuable. But at the time, it was going to end that company's existence. So we also get to test in some interesting places, although fortunately we never get down there ourselves. And one of the places that we were testing was a wealth management company down in the Caribbean. And we were really just we were given access to given access to a machine on the environment, a Kali box like we always do, and we were hopping around the environment, and we actually managed to get onto some users' computer, and we thought, oh, that's quite interesting. And scratching around, we weren't really having a lot of luck with anything at this stage, other than getting onto that user's device, which that is progress. Then we found this funny little text file, ADS, I don't know what, .txt, which looked a bit strange. And we went into this file, opened it up, and there was a even stranger looking URL and then a password next to it. So, being pen testers, we obviously got to click on the URL, and we were into their funds administrative system, and we then had access to the 150 million that they had sitting within their environment. I think with a bit of time, we could have got some that money out if that's what we wanted to do. Anyway, we did highlight this issue fairly pronto with the client, and they were very impressed with our pen testing capabilities and not impressed with their employee password hygiene management. But these are some of the things that we do see. We've also done some work out in Japan, and this was pretty interesting in that we were asked to do a pen test again in a law firm, and we had to do the pen test because all Japanese windows, so the sort of kanji characters. However, our pen testers were pretty good at understanding Windows, so they didn't really need to be able to see what they read. They just knew where they were within the system. The system that they had there was they had dark trace monitoring. Anyway, we were able to move around fairly easy within that environment, and then it came to the mop-up meeting, and we've got some documentation which we leave within the environment on the Kali box, but they asked us, what could you have taken out? And we said, okay, we found these documents, and they were very quickly like, we didn't know what it was because it's all Japanese. And they said, oh no, please close that down. So, oh, what's the problem with that? He said, no, that's all the partners' bank statements with all their values on their current partnership holding. So they weren't very happy with us showing that around the room. So yeah, that was just an interesting story about what you see when you go around on these pen tests. And then this to me was early days in our business, but it was an absolute shocker. So a friend of mine has a financial services company, and we'd almost begged her to let us do a pen test for her, and but she wasn't that worried about us doing the pen test because the MSP was putting itself out there being, well, we look after your data, but we're also very good at security, security, like everything, every second word that they said on their branding was all about security. And so we said, okay, well, let's do a pen test. Anyway, it took us a bit of a while doing testing. Obviously, we found the normal stuff, terrible passwords that her staff and including herself were using at the time. The good old ones like Liverpool 123 and those absolute classics. And so we got them to publish all these dreadful passwords around. But the one password that we did find was the MSP's password for that tenant environment, but not just that tenant environment for our client, the MSP's password for all their clients. Anyway, we brought it to their attention, and they never ever acknowledged that they got it. They never responded to the email. It was quite extraordinary. It was just like this never happened. Push it under the carpet, and move on, nothing to see here. So, but it was quite extraordinary, and it did tell me, what's going on in the marketing brochure and what's happening in the environment are two different things with these managed service providers. Um, this was a this is one of the strangest stories that ever happened, and that's ever happened with us. We had this person approached us. They kind of knew that this app was badly built because they'd done it sort of El Cheapo and offshored and didn't really hadn't paid attention. But for some reason, they wanted us to pen test it. So my pen tester was like, well, I don't want to have anything to do with these people. I don't want to even test it. I was like, we actually need to make money. We need to test these guys. So, you just get on and test them. And it didn't take him very long. Put the app on the rig again, and there was their AWS password baked into the actual app. And we're like, well, you obviously that this is just ridiculous. This is a criticality. We phoned them up almost immediately. You need to fix this up. And we finished off the rest of the report, but and there was really a laundry list of things that were wrong with this app from a security perspective. And then I was like saying to the client, can we do when you fix it, can we do a follow-up test? And they went very quiet, and I thought, oh well, obviously it's pricing, or they don't like the fact that we found all these things, or some whatever it is. Anyway, I sort of forgot about it. And then about 2 years later, I was having lunch with my son, who's a developer, and he mentioned this client's name, and I said, "Oh, okay." And he said to me, "Dad, you can't believe these people. They've actually got their password sitting in their app." I said, "You're not going to believe this, Ollie. We tested those guys 2 years ago, and that's what we told them to fix. They'd left it for 2 years, and then to make it even more ridiculous. These guys have grown their business not just sort of in Europe, but they've grown it in other parts of the world. They're setting up more businesses, and they're walking around with this app. And really, all that has to happen is somebody has to go in there and steal their whole database, and they'll be out of business within a day. It literally kind of blows your mind. It's probably the most shocking thing, a bit of negligence that I've ever seen. It kind of competes with the engineers. So this was a cloud deployment that went wrong. We got pulled in by a financial services company just to check they were migrating some of their staff to the cloud, and I was thinking, well, you can't really mess that up. It's virtual PCs and a cloud environment. How can that go wrong? I mean, it's just going to be the most boring test. We're going to find nothing. Anyway, we jump onto the first PC, and we're going through it, and no, they've given all the virtual PCs admin credentials, and we're like, is this intentional? Or no, no, sorry, that's a mistake. And we're like, okay. So we just like, I mean, how wrong can you get it? How early on? It was just absolutely extraordinary. Now, I know that Citrix is sort of fading into the background, but this was probably its last hurrah that it had with a law firm. And so what was happening was we were obviously, Citrix is there to make sure that your staff can't steal data. It locks them in a closed environment. And but at the same time as you've got your Citrix, you've just installed Windows, and Windows at that stage by default had an SSH tunnel open on this PC build. So you spent an absolute fortune installing Citrix, but you've got a tunnel that you can tunnel back into your database, suck out as much data as you like, and steal from your own company if you wanted to. And this is really just an SSH tunnel with a proxy going back, and then going back from your AWS environment and stealing the data. Just again, just highlighting really basic security pen testing, how it actually made the client more secure. Um, so now, I just wanting to finish off and just to highlight the fact that there's a lot of people using scans and vulnerability scans. We've even got clients of ours that will do a vulnerability scan for them, and they will pass it on to their sort of banking partners and other people as a pen test. And it's just not really good enough having a vulnerability scan and thinking that is a pen test. We find things all the time, and it's really just done through the misconfigurations. They're the gateways that we always just use. The software is generally good that most companies have got or built or using. It's just the way they've been set up and the errors that have been done that. And really, I don't believe you can get to solving any of those real problems without doing a manual pen test. So thank you very much for your time. And that's if you've got any war stories, I'd also like to hear them from any of you out there. Thank you very much.